Hey everybody. Today in this clip, this is a smaller clip of a bigger video on using some fast factoring, that is factoring complex trinomials. What you're going to see in this clip are some ways to take your guessing options in your guess and check and narrow them down so you don't even have to try as many options as what are possible. There's some ways to be able to rule out some options at the very beginning. So in essence, some ways to make your fast factoring even faster. So watch this clip and you'll see some things to look for. Okay, best of luck. So you see on the screen 4 more trinomials. Now, as we're working through these, I'm going to argue to you, as soon as you start to feel comfortable using this fast factoring chart, then keep attempting problems on your own. However, the purpose of addressing some of these is to talk about things we can notice that help us to limit our options in our chart. And so, just because you happen to get the same answer doesn't mean that we were being as efficient as we could have been, and we may have missed some tips to use moving forward. So please make sure that you're listening to the discussion over why we did what we did with our chart and what we saw in those trinomials that helped us. Okay, let's take a look at E. Now, since we've covered a few complex trinomials, I'm going to have some people that are automatically going to jump into using a fast factoring chart. But I would hope that you guys can take a look and notice that's a simple trinomial. I have a leading coefficient of 1. So I don't need my fast factoring chart. However, I will have some people that will still use it. And if I'm going through and I'm evaluating something that you've given me and I see a fast factoring chart, I'm going to write Y on it because it's not needed. But I just want to show you it doesn't hurt you that much, a little bit of time. Maybe it takes some fluency out of it with you. So we take a look. Some people will go, hey, 2 numbers that multiply to give 1, 1 and 1. And then they jump to the 27 at the end and they say 2 numbers that multiply to give 27, 9 and 3. I need to get a -6 out of that. That means that I need my 9 to be negative and my 3 to be positive. And I get confirmation on my sign of my constant. A negative times a positive is a negative. So stuff matches up and I'm good. So as we work our way through that red fast factoring chart, I would hope that we're not using a fast factoring chart when we're talking about simple trinomial. But if you do, it still gets you there. Put in your brackets, put in your variables, and you're good. Okay, I want you to take a look at question F. Now, why am I talking about question F? I'm going to assume as we move forward, at least for right now, that you're good with a fast factoring chart. So what I want to talk to you about then is ways that we can get faster. So let's start off with question F. We take a look and we notice I have no common factor in all 3 terms. So now I'm factoring it using my chart and I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give 9. I'm going to try 3 and 3. Yes, I would have 9 and 1 as an option because I don't just have a prime number anymore. But I tend to start in the middle. So I might start with something like 3 and 3. Okay, I jump over to the end and now I look at that 4 and I could now say, okay, 2 numbers that multiply to give 4. And for all of that same reasoning, I may write down 2 and 2. Now, what I want to point out to you is, with a little bit of experience, I can tell right off the bat that there is no way that my options for 4 are 2 and 2. There is no possible way. And so I get faster with my options that I wouldn't have tried 2 and 2. I know that if this factors, it has to be 4 and 1. Okay, why? I just want you to look in your chart for a second, and I'm just going to get rid of that green. I want you to look at what happens when we multiply across. You're going to multiply 3 by 2, and that's going to give you a 6. You're then going to multiply 3 by a 2, and that's going to give you another 6. And I'm not answering no, I know it's not possible because I get 2 6s and 2 6s can't give me 15. That's not what I'm talking about. I know that I can't have the 2 and 2 because when I look at my original trinomial, I notice that that 15 is an odd number. Now what I want you to do is I want you to look at the 2 blue 6s that I wrote down. And I want you to think to yourself, how can you ever put together 2 even numbers and somehow get an odd? You can't. That any combination of adding or subtracting 2 even numbers has to give me an even. And so, one of the things that we look for when we go through to try our options in our chart is we're going to look at that middle term from time to time. And here is a great case where I can tell as soon as I pick 2 and 2, then I am going to multiply whatever other numbers I choose by 2, and therefore I am going to create even numbers. And I can never put even numbers together to give me an odd, so I know that that chart has no chance of being correct. So, when I go through, one of the things I can do to speed up is I take a look at my chart and I say, okay, I got my 3 and my 3. Now, when I go to pick 4, I notice 4 is an even number. So I'm going to do a quick glance at my 15. And as soon as I see that that's odd, I'm trying 4 and 1 first. And so now what do? We can take a quick peek when we multiply across. The 3 times the 4 gives me a 12. The 3 times the 1 gives me a 3. 12 and 3 gives me 15 if both of those are positive, and I get confirmation on my signs. So all I need to do, brackets and variables, and there are my factors. Nice. Okay. Using the odd versus even on my middle term can really help me to speed some stuff up. I want to show you now the longest it could have taken, really the longest it could have taken had we gone through and used our fast factoring chart. Okay, I'm going to take all the options. Let's imagine that I started with my 9 as a 9 and 1. And now I go 2 and 2. Okay, well, when I multiply across, I get an 18 and a 2. And I can't get a 15 out of that. So I'm going to flip it. Well, that was a colossal waste of time. I'm flipping 2 and 2. That gives me the same options. But okay, I go through 18 and 2. I can't get a 15. So then I change my options on 4, and I go 4 and 1. Well, there I would get a 9 and a 4. I can't make a 15 out of that. So I flip it. Wow, that's taken me really far in the wrong direction because now I'm going to get a 36 and a 1, and I can't get a 15 out of that. So then I'm going to get rid of my 9 as a 9 and 1 and look at it as a 3 and 3. Well, I do the same thing. There's a 6 and 6. I'm getting a little bit better now, so I'm not going to flip my 2s. And now when I come in on 4 and 1, now I have the right combination. Okay, that's as long as it would have taken. And I would argue, for a lot of us, that's still probably bringing you in faster than the 3 lines of factoring using another method like decomposition might take. So let's keep getting some practice. We're going to keep working to be more and more efficient with it. Okay, I want you to take a look at G now. If you want to try it on your own, give it a shot. Let's pause the video now. Okay, we're back. So why did I want to talk about G? Because there's a real common thing that can happen here. You take a look. There is no common factor in all 3 terms. So you look at factors of 6, and maybe I go 3 and 2. You then take a look at factors of 21. And maybe I go, hey, 21, that's 3 times 7. Okay. I know for certain that that cannot be the correct combination. For certain, I know that. Okay, why? Well, I just want you to imagine, forget about the fact that those are not going to come together to give me 11 in the middle. 21 and 6 does not give me 11. But let's just imagine it did. And we started to write out the factors. So, put in your brackets and your variables. Now, it might even be easier for us to just go ahead and assume some signs. Like, my middle term is negative, so my bigger number's got to be negative, my smaller one positive. Let's just say it was that, negative 21 and positive 6, just for the ease of being able to see it. I want you to take a look inside my first factor. Do you notice that I have a common factor of 3? And if there was a common factor of 3 or a common factor of anything inside one of the brackets, then when I expand it, I would still have a common factor in my expanded form. So just really quickly, I'm going to expand these brackets, knowing that we don't get the 11 in the middle. 6x squared minus 21x plus 6x is a negative 15x minus 21. And take a look. All of your terms have a common factor of 3. So I'm going to delete all of that, and I want us to look back up in our chart. I can tell right away in my chart that as soon as I have two numbers that are across from each other that have a common factor, that the only way that that chart could work is if there was a common factor in the whole expression. And if we always make looking for a common factor our number one option, number one thing we look for, then that can help us to skip over some fast factoring checks. So when my first question was, hey, do I see a common factor in all three terms? No, I don't. Then it doesn't slow me down on my initial 3 and 2. But when I now look at factors of 21, I know that I am not going to put any number in that blue box that would have a factor of 3, and no number in that green box that would have a factor of 2, which allows me to speed up my process. So what could I end up doing to go through? Well, I'm going to now look and go, okay, well, how would I try a 7 and 3? Okay, what does that end up giving me? Well, there's a 14 and a 9. I can't get an 11 out of that. So I'm not going to flip my 7 and my 3. Then what I might do is I might go to, 21 and 1. But that seems like that's going to take me really far away from 11. So I'm likely to keep my 7 and my 3 and instead look at 6 as 6 and 1. Now, just so we can kind of hammer home this point, I know that that can't be an option. Because if you take a look across from each other, I've got two numbers that have a common factor again. So that helps me to say that once I've kept my 7 and my 3, that now if I'm going to try 6 and 1, it has to be that way. So let's do a little check. Multiply across, I get an 18. Multiply across, I get a 7. 18 and 7, I can get a negative 11. I need the 18 to be negative, and I need my 7 to be positive. And so now I have everything I need, brackets and variables, and there we go. Okay, we just walked through two things that can help us to speed up our options. Can we look back on question F? Even number at the end. Odd middle term. We watch out for some stuff. Common factors inside our fast factoring chart for question G. Ways that can help us to avoid just mindlessly going through some checks. Okay, what I want you to do on question H, I want you to give that one a go. So let's go start to finish on that one and we'll see how well we do. Okay, pause the video now. Okay, we're back. So if I'm taking a look at question H, then maybe I start and I go common factor in all three terms. No, I don't have one. And I see my 8, and then I go, okay, that's a 4 and a 2. Now, I just made both of those numbers even, so I'm going to take a quick look then. Okay, I have an even middle term, so that has a shot. Now I'm looking at my factors of 15, and then I can go 5 and 3, and I can do a quick check. Multiply across, and I get 12 and 10, and there is no way that I can get those numbers to come together for a 14. So I'm going to flip that 5 and 3 and write it as a 3 and a 5. Okay, now I multiply across again. I end up getting a 20 and a 6. Yep, I can make that come together to give me a positive 14. So I need my 20 to be positive and my 6 to be negative, and I get a little confirmation on my 15 that that has to be a negative value. I know that I'm correct. So brackets and variables, again, look at your variable, it's A, and there's our factors. Pretty quick. Okay, so let's use what we've been kind of walking through so far today and see if we can start applying it, see if we can start using it to become fast factorers ourselves. We're also going to kind of throw some curveballs at you a little bit and see if we can take what we've talked about today and adjust it a little bit, okay? Let's jump into some other problems.